Hello. This is the Bible in fewer words. We are Carol and Steve Wells. This is episode 252, the Gospel of Mark, chapters 7 and 8. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Carol.
We're just moving along through Mark. I think we're halfway.
Yeah, we will be after this.
Okay, let's go. Chapter 7. When the Pharisees and scribes saw some of Jesus' disciples eating without washing their hands, they said to Jesus, "Why don't your disciples wash their hands before eating?"
Jesus said, "Why do you reject God's commandment that says, 'Kill whoever curses his father or mother'?"
So I guess they weren't following that rule at the time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it was too much, even at this time, to obey the very clear laws of the Old Testament. In Exodus, Deuteronomy, and Leviticus, all have a verse that says, "Kill disobedient children who curse or hit their parents." And Jesus is criticizing the Pharisees for not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that seem strange to you that Jesus would do that?
Yes.
He's like saying you should be doing that.
Uh-huh. Well, today when people have a discussion about the commandments, they don't like that one either.
Oh, no. And I don't think they liked it then either.
No.
It was even unacceptable at the time to kill your parents. I mean, to kill your children if they were disobedient, right? Or they cursed you.
Yeah.
But I think what Jesus is really doing here is just saying, well, you don't follow the scriptures either. You don't follow the laws either. So.
Which seems kind of like na.
Exactly.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Verse 14. Jesus called all the people together and said to them, "A person is defiled by what comes out of the body, not by what goes into it."
Yeah, so Jesus is saying,
a few germs on your hands won't do any harm.
Yeah, exactly. When Jesus entered the house, his disciples asked him what the parable meant.
Oh, that one he just said there?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us, please. Jesus said to them, "Don't you understand anything? Can't you see that nothing that enters the body can defile it? Whatever enters through the mouth passes through the belly and leaves the body."
It's what comes out that defiles a person. Bad thoughts, adultery, fornication, murder, theft, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, and foolishness. These things come from within and defile people.
Okay. Verse 24.
I don't know how does an evil eye come out of
Come out of your body to begin with. Yeah. In verse 24. From there, Jesus went to Tyre and Sidon and stayed in a house where he hoped he wouldn't be found. But the people found him anyway.
Yeah, that's quite a ways away. This is up in along the coast in Syria. Mm-hmm. And so it would be from where he was in Galilee, it would be maybe a 30, 40, 50-mile trip.
Yeah.
While he was there, a woman whose daughter had an unclean spirit came and fell at his feet. She asked him to remove the devil from her daughter.
But Jesus said to her, "It's not right to take children's bread and cast it to the dogs."
She said to Jesus, "Even dogs feed from the children's crumbs."
All right. My question here is, I remember this story, and the problem was that she wasn't a believer, or she wasn't a... Is that right?
She's not a Jew.
And so he's saying, why should I spend my time with you or give you anything?
You're kind of,
like forgiveness or...
Yeah, I'm kind of wasting stuff on dogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
so he's sort of calling her a dog.
Yes, you dog.
Yeah.
So then Jesus said, "Go on your way. The devil has gone out of your daughter." And when she came into her house, she found the devil gone from her daughter.
Yeah.
So that one line that she said there, even dogs feed from the children's crumbs. I'm not sure what that means really, but it worked.
Even non-Jews
mm-hmm.
can benefit from Jewish teachings and beliefs or something
and
like
miracles.
That. And yeah, I guess.
Okay, I'll take that.
After Jesus left Tyre, he traveled toward the Decapolis by way of Sidon and the Sea of Galilee.
A deaf man with a speech impediment was brought to him. Jesus put his fingers in the man's ears, and then he spit and rubbed some of the spit on the deaf man's tongue. That sounds hygienic.
Yeah. Then he looked up to heaven, sighed, and said, "Be opened." And immediately the man could hear and speak plainly. Jesus told them not to tell anyone, but they told everyone anyway.
You'd think Jesus would just give up on telling people not to tell anyone.
So this is the first spit miracle
Okay.
in this episode. And it's one that was left out. You know, a lot of these stories that we've had so far in this episode, we've already heard in Matthew, right?
Yeah.
And they'll also be repeated. Some of them are going to be repeated in Luke later on. But neither Matthew nor Luke repeat the spit miracle. It was just too gross for them, I think. It was left out.
Okay, chapter 8. Jesus said to his disciples, "I feel sorry for the people. They haven't eaten anything in 3 days." Oh, I sense I know what's coming.
Yeah. They replied, "Where can we find food for them in the wilderness?" Jesus said, "How many loaves do you have?"
And they answered, 7. Jesus told the people to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves, gave thanks, broke them, and gave the bread to his disciples, who distributed it to the people.
There were also a few small fishes that they distributed among the people. Everyone ate as much as they wanted. Then the disciples gathered 7 baskets of leftovers.
And 4,000 people were fed. Then Jesus sent them away. They're not having a balanced diet there. I don't see any greens.
The Pharisees tempted Jesus by asking him for a sign from heaven. Jesus sighed and said, "Why does this generation ask for a sign? There'll be no sign given to this generation." In Matthew, he said, "But the sign of Jonah." Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jonah was the sign. He lived in a belly for 3 days, and that's how I'm going to live.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. I have a pretty good memory.
You do.
The disciples forgot to bring bread with them. Jesus said to them, "Beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and of Herod."
The disciples said to one another, "Is he saying this because we have no bread?" But Jesus knew what they were thinking, so he said, "Why are you talking about not having any bread?"
I fed 5,000 with 5 loaves. How many baskets were left over? 12.
Jesus said, "And what about the 4,000 with 7 loaves? How many baskets were left over?"
And they said, 7.
Jesus said, "So why don't you understand?"
I don't know why they don't understand. I guess that they need more bread, it looks like.
So this whole passage here is all about them not bringing bread.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesus says, "Beware of the yeast of the Pharisees." And he doesn't explain what he's talking about there.
No.
Because he's not talking about bread, but it's not explained in Mark. It was explained in Matthew a little bit.
Yep. Okay, verse 22. When Jesus came to Bethsaida, they brought a blind man and asked him to touch him.
Jesus took the blind man by the hand and led him out of town. Then he spit on his eyes and asked him if he could see.
I understand why he let him out of town. Didn't want anybody to see him doing that gross thing. The man looked up and said, "I see men that look like trees walking." Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes, and then he could see clearly. He sent him away and told him not to tell anyone.
Yeah.
So what's the men that look like trees?
Oh, so what it is it's a gradual cure.
Oh.
Usually when Jesus cures somebody, it happens right away. But in this case, he spit in his eyes.
Uh-huh.
And then he looked and he couldn't see right away. He said, "Oh, I think I can see some, or I see some men, but they look like trees."
Uh-huh.
And so Jesus realized that it hadn't quite
Set
worked.
in yet.
Yeah. And so then he rubbed his eyes, right?
Yeah.
And then he could see.
Well,
So it was
great.
a gradual miracle, but it's the
Okay.
second miracle of the spit, of Jesus' spit.
Maybe he's losing some of his miracleness, and they're getting weaker, and they take more time.
This is also a miracle that neither Matthew nor Luke wanted anything to do with. They didn't include it in their gospel. There is one more. I just want to tell you this isn't the end of Jesus' spit, just to have something to look forward to.
All right, I will. Verse 27. Jesus and his disciples went to the towns of Caesarea and Philippi. On their way, Jesus asked them, "Who do people say that I am?"
They answered, "Some say you're John the Baptist, others Elijah or one of the prophets."
Jesus said, "Who do you say that I am?"
Peter said, "You are the Christ." Jesus said, "Don't tell anyone." So up to now, there's been it's a messianic secret. It's a secret that he's the Messiah, that he's the Son of God.
Oh.
And he doesn't want anybody to know about it. All the way up through the first half of the Gospel of Mark, right?
Yeah.
It's always, don't tell
Don't
anyone.
tell anyone.
The only
Yeah.
people that really know what's going on were Jesus, because he was told by God at his baptism. The author of the Gospel of Mark seems to know. We know because we're reading it, and Mark told us, started off with, this is the gospel of Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah.
Which is the Messiah. But
The disciples don't know?
the disciples don't know. And even when they figure it out here at the very last, and Peter is fairly clear about it, Jesus says, don't tell anyone.
All righty. Verse 31. Jesus told his disciples that he'd be rejected, suffer, and die, and then he'd rise from the dead in 3 days. Peter rebuked him for saying it. And then Jesus rebuked Peter, saying, "Get away from me, Satan." Oh, those are strong words.
Yeah, it's no way to speak to the first pope.
No.
Then Jesus called the people to him and said, "If you want to follow me, you must deny yourself and pick up your cross. If you want to save your life, you'll lose it. If you lose your life for me and my gospel, you'll save it."
What good is it to gain the whole world if you lose your soul? If any of you in this sinful and adulterous generation is ashamed of me and my words, then I'll be ashamed of you when I come in the glory of God with his angels.
Okay, so now he's kind of outing himself.
Yes. He's getting out of the closet.
Yeah. So now I think from now on, he's going to be...
The guy, the
Yep.
Savior, the Messiah.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's good to know. I'm glad we were let in on this little secret.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for all your work, Steve.
Sure.
Bye-bye, listeners.
Bye.